The Haunting of Villa Diodati, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly.
I'm not even going to attempt to say the name of this title of the episode. No.
I honestly couldn't remember it until you just said it. Honestly, I keep forgetting the name because I really enjoyed the episode. But...
It's named after something that never gets spoken in the episode. Like, I don't think they say Villa Diodati at all. Like, that's the location, but it's never spoken or shown anywhere.
Why didn't they just call it, I don't know, like one of the main side characters or something? It's a very strange title.
It's an accurate title. There is a haunting of this house.
Yeah. But just call it that, the haunting of the house.
Want to be like really corny? You could have just called it, it was a dark and stormy night.
There you go. Just make it as corny.
That would at least hook people.
Yeah, but like it's like an ironic title where it's like, oh, it's a cliche story, but it's not.
I made my point in the video, which is I thought that you could argue the choice of this setting and Mary Shelley and Frankenstein is maybe a bit arbitrary. Cyberman shows up on the night that Frankenstein's supposed to be conceived. That story writes itself. And this isn't exactly what you'd imagine that is. Mary Shelley herself is way more of a side presence, and like the fact that Frankenstein is being thought of at this time is not really a big factor in it at all.
I kind of went into a tirade in my video about the Mary Shelley thing because like I feel like she kind of got the shaft in this.
It's unfortunate. I accept the episode on its own terms. Like, this is the story it wanted to tell, and like Mary Shelley being here and this choice of time and place is really just a setting thing. Fine, I can accept that. But like stuff like Rosa and the Nikola Tesla episode and Witchfinders, even, I'd argue, where it's like we can't take the historical figure of the episode and like make them central and give them like an interesting sort of, if not character journey, at least tie in their experiences thematically with the plot. And we don't really do that here.
We had one scene where she was talking with Ryan on the piano, which I really liked, actually, where they talk about her writing aspirations. That was something.
You know what would be interesting is if we drew attention to the writing of Frankenstein at the end of this episode, rather than ending with the poem from Lord Byron, which I do think is a nice ending. But what I think is interesting is sort of perception of Frankenstein as a kind of sympathetic character, like, oh, it's this poor monster and what a dummy. But in the actual novel, Frankenstein is this cold, calculating, intelligent creature where it's like he could have maybe been a good person, but really he's just this monstrous personality due to his upbringing. And like, I would have liked to have that be the result of her discussion with the Cyberman, where she's like, I see you have a soul in you. Like, I know that there's good in you. Like, you spared my son. And then it turns out, psych, fooled you. I'm just a total sadist, and I like killing things. And that kind of becomes the rough base for what Frankenstein's monster, the character, ends up being. That could be interesting.
As you said, though, like, the Frankenstein's monster is very much a person that, like, he wasn't, like, a bad dude originally. Like, he was going to be this great thing. And then, like, Frankenstein was like, oh, no, this ain't working out. And
oh, no, I made his eyes too weird, so I'm just going to abandon him, basically.
Well, it's not even that. Like, it's just, like, it's a complete, like, cluster. If he gets abandoned and then, like he learns some stuff and then, like, society just, like, abandons him, like, and he's just resentful. He's like, I was made awful, and, like, I could have been great, and now I'm just going to ruin this guy's life because he screwed me over horribly.
Yeah, take revenge on the system.
Revenge!
Her handling definitely could have been way more interesting, but it's whatever. Haunted house episode, it's cool haunted house episode, and all the Cyberman stuff I think is really interesting.
Complete the thought on the Mary Shelley thing. Like, I find it kind of interesting that, like, out of all the things to do it with, like, because there is this focus on having like historical figures, in particular like female historical figures, and like showing how great they are and stuff. And it's like with this episode, like a lot of the dialogue is her like worrying about her baby, and then like she gets the idea of Frankenstein because she just happened to be in a room with a thing, kind of. And like,
and also the fact that there's another Shelley in the episode.
Yeah, the person kind of steals the spot, kind of takes away the spotlight a bit. So that
Yeah,
kind of hurt too. Like,
it's unfortunately kind of easy to forget that she's here sometimes.
especially because, like, well, one, the last episode is like they're specifically like, we're gonna go Frankenstein and Mary Shelley and stuff, and then it's like not really as much as you would think. And also, I did some reading on Wikipedia like after the episode, going after Mary Shelley and stuff, or like reading on Mary Shelley. And like, there's some interesting stuff there. Like, she actually wrote a couple of other things outside of Frankenstein that like that was later in her career. So like, I understand not mentioning it, but like, or actually, you could have mentioned it. Like, you could have been like, Mary was known for did more than just Frankenstein. You know, like she was pretty cool. And there's even like a story about like how Percy actually wrote a review of Frankenstein himself that never got published because like he anticipated backlash. And like there could have been like a lot of stuff about like, you know, how like she was kind of a trailblazer as far as like, you know, female science fiction authors or just authors in general. And like, it is a shame that she got the shaft because like, out of all the people to focus on, like, it feels like this was one you could have done. And I guess they did have Big Finish, but even there's kind of a mess with how that even works in the canon now. But
I'd say it felt like more of a Lord Byron episode. Really, he got a lot more focus, and he even ends the episode with the reading the poem. And I think he gets a lot more characterization than she does. I don't think she was completely shafted, but yeah, it was a bit strange. They chose to focus a bit less on her than another historical figure in the episode.
If the episode feels like watching it, it flows nicely and it feels better than what I'm about to make it sound like. Thinking on it, I wouldn't be surprised if this was like, we had an idea for a Frankenstein episode. Maybe it was going to be a Frankenstein and Cyberman episode anyway. And then they were like, let's make it part of this arc. Like the arc stuff kind of took over the Shelley stuff. Like
I'm not sure about that. I did like that they did at least fit it in.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what happened. But that's kind of on paper what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it feels a bit weird because the first half of the episode is just like, okay, it looks like, is this going to be another mediocre filler episode? And then the villain comes in right in the halfway point, and then most of the focus is on him and dealing with like, okay, what's going to happen with like the next 2 episodes.
And like what stops it from feeling like a shoehorned in thing where it's like suddenly the episode is about something completely different is that the Cyberman is indirectly responsible for all the weird haunting shenanigans through the first half.
It's kind of like Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways in a bit, like in a microcosm where it's just like we have all these reality shows, wackadoodleness.
That's weird, isn't it?
It started out as one thing, and then it's like, oh no, the real villain was behind it all along.
But like,
I was thinking before the Cyberman turns up, I was thinking this is a blatant rip-off of Hyde, like with the time traveler in the haunted
I was
house. Then
thinking
they
of
turn into
Hyde, like,
Cyberman, I was
where
like,
like, it turns out, oh, it's not a ghost, it's a traveler person. And it's like, oh, Cyberman. And
yeah, it's like, it's weird that we keep specifically doing Cyberman as ghosts, right?
3 times where like one was more like the afterlife, but it was not like ghost per se.
Although, you know what, I suppose that actually makes a lot of sense. And now that you mention it, it's really interesting that we now have a take on that from each showrunner. Like, we have Russell's take and Moffat's take and Chibnall's take now on, like, Cybermen as literal ghost in the way that they've always kind of been.
Or zombies or something.
Like, what? Because it makes sense to do that with the Cybermen if you really think about it. They are literally specters of dead people that just keep walking around. It's like they kind of are ghosts, are what Cybermen are in like a really broad sense.
Yeah, they are definitely associated with the dead, zombies, ghosts, all that.
I can foresee some people, JXE, having a problem with the handling of the Cybermen in this episode because
he actually likes this episode.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. Like, I didn't really like it that much. He was like, I have very little complaints. And I'll leave Stu Bags and his talking about it because
I've been deliberately avoiding those videos because he is for me what Mr. TARDIS is for Lucy. Like, I just find him really obnoxious, despite the fact that I used to like a lot of his stuff. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear what he had to say about this one. But I foresaw him not enjoying it because, like, his complaint about Resolution was that they kind of missed the point of the Daleks or whatever. And I feel like you can argue. I wouldn't argue, but I think I could see people take this stance of like this episode misses the point of the Cyberman by having one who doesn't have his emotional inhibitor turned on yet, is like openly emotional and like has a clear like anger and emotional drive Whereas,
That's because he's incomplete, though. They kind of explain that.
yeah, it's explained.
Story.
But I could see someone being like, oh, whether you explain it or not, doesn't it defeat the purpose of using the Cybermen if you're going to do that? If the whole point of them is that, like, they are emotionally less, and that's what makes them scary.
Well, he is a lone Cyberman, so he has kind of a right to be kind of unique in a way.
There is kind of a thing with the Cybermen where you kind of, usually you get to do both, but it's an interesting crossroads where you can make part of the fear the loss of the emotion, or you can make part of the fear like the mutilation of the physical body, and they choose to go very explicitly with the second one in this episode. That's what makes the Cybermen terrifying, is one of those two things.
I know it's not the best example of great TV or anything. They did that in Torchwood with Cyberwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
And they showed, I know it's a horrible episode, but they did actually show the good mutilation of the body in that one to quite graphic detail.
They do show like the more violent aspect of, what happens there. And then they play her in a stripper outfit. That's kind of
Let's forget about that.
Chibnall wrote that episode, and I'm really interested to see how he, like, building off of this episode, writes the finale and writes a Cyberman in there, because I maintain, and I don't know if Lucy still agrees with this or not, but, like, I hold to my hot take from the Cyberwoman review that we did, which is that everything about that episode is terrible except for Chibnall's script.
No,
I think if you get the actors to give better performances, if you change the music, and if you change that outfit, that is at worst an okay episode. It's not flawless. It's far from flawless.
What about the scene? Gwen and Owen just decide to get trapped. They start snogging each other. And then what? And then she later mentions, "Oh, I got an erection." He got an erection. Or something like that. Yeah, pretty terrible scripting, but
like, I don't know. Watching that episode, taking the outfit out of it, the thing that I came away from that episode thinking most was like, Chibnall gets what makes the Cybermen scary. Stuck with that ridiculous outfit, then like the horror of that situation would like carry that episode, I think.
I agree with that. Say. I agree with that.
It was very different way.
Chibnall,
you're Cyberwoman and Chibnall.
Chibnall knows how to make the Cybermen scary.
Talk about day one next. That'll be fun.
The next two-parter is going to be interesting just to see like where it's going to land as far as like, is it going to be like season 2 Torchwood ending where it's like it's got issues but it's not the worst thing ever, or it's going to crap everything ever. It's like, I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, I mean, if I must continue with my Torchwood hot takes, I'd also argue that the end of season 1 is not bad. You know what? I'll say this. The finale of Torchwood season 1 is one of those things that doesn't have a lot of problems. The problems it has are just really big.
Oh, so it's like X-Men Last Stand.
Yeah, basically.
I guess that's a fair take, I guess.
I do actually like a bit of Torchwood Series 1.
The lows are pretty low.
I'm gay for Mary Shelley. What else?
We were just talking about how we kind of got shafted this episode and didn't get a lot to do.
I mean, understandable, but like...
I completely agree with that, but I think we already discussed that.
Did you know that she was the 8th Doctor's companion?
We did know that, or I did.
Oh, dang. Well, then...
Was that in Big Finish, or
I
was it...
you in the realm of trivia.
Was that in Big Finish, or was it in one of the
Big
books?
Finish.
Or...
It's there's like at least like 3 or 4 audios with Mary Shelley as the 8th Doctor's companion. They even have a Cyberman adventure, so maybe that's where they got the idea from.
Listen, if the Master's back and Ruth exists, and the Doctor admits that she has no idea why the heck her past and it just keeps flowing. If Romana is not alive,
oh dear.
Romana went through the best character arc in Big Finish ever, and I love her, and I want her back because it's never been confirmed whether she lived or died through the Time War.
She does need to come back. I agree.
Back to this
episode.
I wouldn't be opposed to more Romana.
Oh god, I just realized we're gonna get another finale that's the Master and the Cybermen probably. I don't want that.
A new tradition.
I think like they've been doing the Master Cyberman stuff a lot coincidentally. Like, at least with World Enough in Time and Dr. Falls, like with that, I think Moffat wanted to give like Capaldi a bit of a parting gift with the Mondasian Cyberman. And then so that's kind of how that ended up working out. Like, and I like World Enough in Time and stuff. Like, I'm fine with it. But like, I do feel like doing a third time would be a bit.
I think I'm one of the few people who likes the Series 8 finale. I know a lot of people seem to really hate that, but
I like it. I think it's like an underrated masterpiece that everybody.
It's got some good, like,
not a masterpiece, but it's great. I think it's
good
great.
stuff in there. Though I do prefer the Series 10 one.
Yeah, the Series 10 one is just like, incredible.
A lot of good stuff in there. I know Nick and Lucy don't like it that much, but what are you gonna do?
We've got to stop talking about Cyberman stories that aren't this one.
Yeah.
Back on track.
I want to punch Lord Byron in his stupid, handsome face.
It's also kind of weird that like the doc was like, "Don't snog Lord Byron," and like apparently this guy was not up to good stuff. I think like keep it in your pants long enough to not like go after him and stuff. Like it's not going to end well.
True, but we also don't do the thing that we could have done in a lesser episode, which is give him like a big cartoony comeuppance or something. No, it's just
a bit of a comeuppance.
Yeah,
well, he got dumped.
Madame Claremont realizes that he's a womanizer and is like, "I'm done with you, dude." And
which that raises some questions because apparently in actual history that's not what happened. So I don't know how that makes sense. Like, is the idea that history is just screwed now because like apparently they didn't actually do the ghost story thing?
They changed history.
It's just messed up now, and we just got to live with it.
Future Earth, no, it's just been ripped apart by the Cybermen.
It's worth noting, I don't know how old Mary is supposed to be in this episode.
I think she's like 18-ish or like 19 or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like late teens or like early 20s.
Frankenstein when she was 18.
Well, I think the idea at 18.
Well, I do agree at the idea that she got a bit shafted and like didn't have much in terms of actual action to do. I think they encapsulated her character pretty well. They made her very intellectual, yet also she still seems weird enough to be the type of person who would lose her virginity on her mom's grave, which is a real thing. Mary
really
oh my God. Why didn't we get that story? Like, man, family entertainment, everybody.
I like her interaction with, what did he say his name was? Ashad?
Ashad?
Yeah, the Cyberman. And I like
Cyberman.
I like his reaction. I like that little bait and switch.
It's a good bit.
So sympathetic, and
we discuss the slitting of children's throats.
Just casually.
They joined the resistance.
I am better than men.
I know someone out there
I don't know.
despised that scene because he felt like that dialogue was too edgy.
What?
I think it was a decent amount of edge.
He just really hated it. He was like, I hated that whole like, oh, I spared your son because he was a useless runt and I slit my kid's throats. He's like,
who was that?
Edgy.
Who's saying this?
I don't think it's anyone you know. They go by Hail the Nyman on Twitter.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I think real quick? She was born in 1797, and so this episode takes place in 1816, so she would have been 19 or something.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, so she
did look young.
Like a year late.
I don't think she looked 19. I think she looked at least 25.
You gotta cut some slack on that.
I mean, Avengers Endgame, where they cast an actress who was 17 and looks 35, I'm honestly not even gonna...
Wait, what?
Yeah, Scott's daughter.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
In the past, people tend to look aged weird, I guess. Sometimes.
That's true. You had a lot more hardships and stuff, and you pretty much died if you got a cold, so you probably looked pretty old.
Yeah, like I also
by the way, William Shelley died like 3 years after.
I saw someone point out that's why the Cyberman spurred him because he was weak and then
William
sickly and then he dies 3 years later.
Like apparently Claire Claremont is like lived the longest out of everyone here. Like she actually lived up to her 80s, whereas like everyone else died like fairly young. Like Mary died in her 50s, and then like everyone else died like real young too. So it's pretty unfortunate. But
yeah, I think her husband died when he was only 29.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's really sad because like there's this element to the episode that I really like of like what it ultimately comes down to is, at least in a vacuum without having seen the next two episodes, this one ends on a note of like, the Cybermen are an inevitability. You cannot stop them. Human beings will eventually become this, and we cannot change that. That kind of is also that mood sticks with the Shelleys, where it's like, William's going to die in a couple of years. Percy's going to die pretty soon. They don't have good times ahead of them, and neither does the rest of the human race, really.
Oh, so uplifting.
It's an uplifting episode.
Moving from that a bit, I really like the doctor just up and says, this is not like a flat team structure.
Yep, let's talk about...
I am more powerful.
Very good.
I am more powerful than any other Jedi.
Let's
I have the high ground.
let's talk about that scene.
I love it.
I know that there are some split opinions on like the nature of that scene and like where it ultimately goes. Because Boris, it was you, right, who said like,
Yeah, we were debating about this on Twitter, like whether or not we should have had 2 moral dilemmas back to back.
yeah, and I like that we did because like the first moral dilemma is one person's life, which might in turn change who knows how much of human history, and can we take that risk? And the Doctor finds a way out of it because that's what they do. Like, we do this all the time on this show. We present them with the moral dilemma, and the Doctor takes a third option, or at least manages to like mitigate the damage as much as possible. So she finds a way to do that, and then another moral dilemma comes, and it's almost like the episode / the universe / whatever is saying, you can't stave off the Cybermen forever.
Call back to Bill.
I waited for you.
And like in that episode, in specifically the beginning of The Doctor Falls, the Doctor has a line, I forget exactly what it is because I haven't watched that episode in a while, but he basically says, Cybermen are going to show up wherever there are humans.
It's inevitable.
Call back to the Keys of Marinus in that line, actually, as well.
It's like it's just gonna happen. The Doctor thinks she's found this way to like prevent giving the Cybermen like a huge advantage in this conflict. No, like she can't stop it. It's coming. There's nothing she can really do. She can save Percy Shelley for now. She can preserve human history as she knows it, but the Cybermen are gonna come eventually, and they are going to supplant humanity. It's unfortunate, but it's got to happen.
But here's the thing. I know we had like you were getting cranky about it, about the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, this is a different point. Lucy has a separate point about all this.
Yeah, I mean, sacrificed her husband. I mean, maybe she would have to put the whole world in danger.
Well, apparently the idea is that Percy Shelley's like work apparently like influences a lot of people, including like Martin Luther King or Gandhi and stuff. So like maybe that's part of the point.
Maybe.
But like I do kind of have to question like, is the altered history going to be worse than the like cyborg apocalypse?
That's what I'm getting at.
Like, I don't know. It's a little weird.
Okay, I get what they're trying to do here. I just think they should pick somebody where we knew there was going to be a horrible outcome if they don't exist.
The way, or something I suggested was that like maybe just have it be like the Doctor just doesn't want to sacrifice anyone on general principle ever, and is like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to sacrifice Percy Shelley's life for this. It's not worth it because I don't like sacrificing people if I don't have to. And then the Queen's like, what are you, nuts? You got to sacrifice them. And then it's like, no, we can't do that.
I think she alludes to it, that she doesn't want to risk changing history in a big way, didn't she?
Kind of deferring from Lucy's point is like, sure, it might not seem like Percy's work, at least to our view, had a big influence, but like, I don't know, imagine what that would do to Mary, who invents science fiction, which like influences people to study into blood transfusion and how the heck the human body works. There's a lot there about how their work influences just the furthering of science of the human race.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and so like maybe Ryan explicitly will exist, but you don't know. Maybe his great-great-grandfather needed a blood transfusion.
And like, I think this whole thing is really interesting in like a way that maybe only this show of all shows in existence could possibly get, because like this brings to my mind a really interesting example of how like different people choose to accept or reject it when a story just tells us that a scenario has narrative stakes. Because the time travel on this show is completely inconsistent. Said like
Atlantis has sunk 4 different times.
I think it's only 3, but whatever.
Underwater Menace, The Time Monster, and
something else.
15 years ago, part of this discussion would be whether or not the Reapers would eventually show up, and they are just a non-factor now. Like, this show, episode to episode, chooses how the butterfly effect works, if it ever applies, and what are the circumstances that would make that happen. Ryan's first words to Percy Shelley, can we come in before we drown to death? Did they put in any thought into that line.
Possibly didn't think of that, but it could be a coincidence.
That's either brilliant or cruel. I don't know what to say.
I doubt it's a coincidence because we have the visual that lets us know that the writer knows that drowning is how Percy dies, so it probably was a dark bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because this show is so inconsistent about its time travel rules, it really does just have to, every episode, whether a moment is like a fixed point in time, or if it's in flux, or if this happens, then this happens. So if the episode says that Percy Shelley dying here and now might irrevocably change human history, then you have people like Lucy who can't necessarily take that just at face value just because of like innate assumptions about his influence. But we also just, the way that this show works, when it tells us something like that is going to happen, we kind of have to pick and choose if we just take that to mean what it means. And also, we have to remember that, like, someone says, you know, obviously it's math, whatever. There's a sacrifice one person, do whatever. The Doctor is not an unbiased party, and they never have been. Like, in scenarios like this, the Doctor can make the hard choice, but it's never, they're not like a computer. And I think it's important that in this scene, the Doctor makes it about, if I change human history, then I could lose you guys, and I don't want that to happen. Like, she has a very self-interested reason to not want to kill him.
I get that, but I still feel like I would have picked someone else for this because, like I said, he does have influence, he does have importance, but it's just kind of iffy. I think the scene would just land for me more if they had somebody where we knew if this person does not exist, it's going to have a ridiculous, huge impact, and a bunch of people are going to die. So it would make a bit more sense.
Well, I mean, like Eden said,
I know. There's things that
I know what you're saying, Lucy. Just for the purposes of in the moment watching the episode, it would be more impactful for someone who's more of a household name.
Yeah.
Like if it were Mary herself, that would be an interesting thing. But like Mary Shelley's husband, for as much influence as he still does have, isn't like a name in the same way. So I get what you're saying.
That they didn't mention that Percy Shelley dying would have altered history would have been something that they didn't say. It was like, I was just more saying like the Doctor in general just wouldn't be like, I don't want to sacrifice this person. That like, and it ties into something like it's the question of whether the Doctor's ethics be held up to like reality, where it's like it's kind of like what Battle of Ranstar Av Kolos was trying to do, where it's like Graham was like, hey, you let Teeth Man live. Let all of this other crap. You know, mercy's not necessarily the best thing all the time, and like it's kind of a similar principle here. It's like, yeah, you get to be ethical and save Percy Shelley, but it's like you're risking the robot apocalypse. So like, and maybe that's the conflict where it's like you can't do this, Doc. You gotta save the future and stuff.
Before anybody gets anything else, I just want to say something. If the next 2 episodes deal with that, like, okay, because Jack told her to, no matter what the cost, don't give it to him and everything. And she gave him, you know, I mean, I know the whole world was at stake by the end, but earlier she gave, you know, she tried to cheat and everything. And because she tried to cheat, because she tried to, you know, weasel her way out of doing something, but because I didn't do the thing earlier, this is going to have huge consequences for the finale, and everyone, like, the Doctor's going to lose or something. Like, I think that would be a really interesting concept because the Doctor went with their biases and not wanting to get their hands dirty that caused the bigger problem.
Well, here's the thing, though, and like Boris mentioned with the fact that there are 2 moral dilemmas, I don't think that would necessarily have to be part of the next 2 episodes because that's not where the episode ends. She finds a way out of that problem, then it becomes sacrifice the whole planet now or sacrifice the whole planet later, where again, it's like, it's basically like the Cyberman cheats, where it's like she wins that problem, and it's like, nope, I've got a whole other ace up my sleeve that makes that.
And it was
Hey.
Step 1 was fix that. Step 2 is fix the mistake I made in step 1.
Yeah, and like it's basically it's part of the whole fatalism angle where it's like her moral choice to like save Shelley and take the Cyberium away from the Cybermen, like her morals ended up not mattering at all. Like her biases about that situation, her desire for whatever reason she may have given for keeping Shelley alive ended up being completely irrelevant.
What is the exact reason she gives it back to the Cybermen? Like,
Because he's got a ship out in the atmosphere that can just
blow up the Earth.
Yeah. Favorite line in that whole thing, and my favorite line in the episode is the one that Eden brought up. Sometimes this team structure isn't flat. Sometimes it's mountainous with me on the top. In the atmosphere alone, left to choose. And it's like, I read that differently from Eden, because Eden takes it as like, listen to me, I am the powerful one, I have the authority. And I read it as that, but also like, she wishes it could be anyone else.
Yeah.
This is another one of those ways, and like 13 is one of the more sort of doctors. She's in this situation where Ryan is like, it's Percy's just one life against all those others. And her face is like equal parts disgust, and I think also just in her brain she's going, you think it's so easy.
Well, that's the look I got.
Yeah, like you think it's the most easy thing in the world to make this choice. You don't have to make the choice. I have to make the choice.
Especially because somebody compared her like moment of I'm not losing anybody else to this to Bill, but also to Adric.
Also Danny.
Yeah.
Like the Cybermen have actually taken a lot from her, and I like that this
especially because Adric in particular, his loss to the Cybermen, and it's a similar situation because he gets rid of a ship that would destroy the Earth and instead gives away for humanity to rise.
Yeah, the irony with the Adric thing is that like he tried to save the day, but like it was something that needed to happen.
Yeah, like that aside, that element of like, this is the first episode in a while I feel like has made the Doctor react to the Cybermen in like an appropriately personal way. They're the big three bad guys. There's the Master, the Daleks, and the Cybermen. And with the Master and the Daleks, whenever they show up, it's always like the Doctor and them have a beef.
Yeah.
And when the Cybermen show up, too often it feels like they're just an obstacle.
Especially because they have no emotions.
And part of that is like the no emotional thing, and part of that is like we keep pairing them with the Master. We keep pairing them with like these human or humanoid characters who are kind of like the mouthpiece for them.
Mm-hmm.
This is an episode.
They never seem to have their own individual
like thing going
motivation
on.
Or
this is the first time in a long time where I feel like we've got the Doctor versus the Cybermen, and that feels like a conflict that like has emotional resonance to her character.
And also just because like this guy is very unique, also he's very much more emotional, so like because he's more individual, it kind of opens up the opportunity for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
I like that we get expansion onto like the physical change drives them insane, and that's why they wipe their minds, but he's only been through the physical change.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point.
And so he's literally going insane?
Yeah, because that's always been a part of the Cybermen, and that's like the thing in Spare Parts, where it's like, the reason that we turn off the emotions isn't just because it's more efficient or whatever, it's because after we've done this to you, if you still had emotions, you would be a crazy person. And now we see that's exactly what this guy is.
Yeah, they mentioned it in World Enough and Time with the thing how you will still feel pain, but you won't care about it.
Okay, so the Cyberman can feel pain.
Pain,
I think,
pain.
And then you have to wonder, did Ashad kill his children before or after his transformation? Like,
I could buy either one.
Or like, is it just the legit physical insanity he's going through?
Made it more explicit, been an interesting Frankenstein parallel.
Yeah.
Where it's like, the fact that this thing is physically what it is part of what drives it insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to finish my earlier point, just like when she's like, you guys want me to do this? So fine, you're ready to sacrifice yourself for this? You want me to sacrifice you? Fine, call it now, all of you. I like that she puts the decision in their hands for a second, and they've got nothing. Like they have no response to that, because hers is the decision that matters, and she has all of this pressure on her. We as outside observers can say, yeah, sure, just sacrifice Shelley. But like in her shoes, would we do it like at the drop of a hat like that? I'm not sure if we would.
I would do it. That power set me above the gods.
I feel, I liked that scene because it ties back, I think, to, remember the scene in Fugitive of the Judoon where she pretty much reminds them they don't really know her. That's sort of like the true Doctor, the more serious side of the Doctor coming out in this episode.
I think I'm thinking of the end of Spyfall. Yeah, but it's like they don't really know her. It's just telling them like, yeah, you don't know me, and Ryan's like, well, you're the Doctor. And like, I mean, you know that, but do you know beyond that? Do you know what makes the Doctor the Doctor, which is like this huge history of like hard decisions.
And it's an interesting thing, and why I like the ending of Fugitive of the Jadoon, because person who they are, or is it the actions that they take in the moment while you're with them? And the companions seem to firmly believe that observing who the Doctor is at present is all they need to know who she is, whereas we and she has the thing of like, that is not a complete picture of who I am necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Fugitive of the Jadoon is that by introducing Ruth, we've got this element of like, does she even know who she is?
Right.
And that just compounds her insecurities. And like, we keep building all this stuff, and I don't necessarily hope that Ruth is in the finale, but I hope that whatever we do with these next 2 episodes, it ultimately comes down to bringing some kind of closure to 13's like really, really heavy like insecurities about who she is and on with herself and all this stuff.
Well, like, even if it's not necessarily closure, I would at least hope like we confront more stuff about it. Some stuff gets resolved, like the Gallifrey stuff is more out in the open. Just like start something.
Because it's been so consistent this series. Like, it's constantly been popping up where it's like all this stuff, she's locked up in her own head so much. And I really want that to come to a head in the next episodes.
Unfortunately, I believe that Nick's theory will have to be correct about the Cyberman and the Master being thing, as much as we love the Cyberman.
Oh, right, because the title is The Timeless Children.
Oh, that's not even
Also
what I was
possible.
saying. That Sasha Dewan is confirmed for 2 more episodes, and there's only 2 more episodes.
Oh.
Also,
I did not know that.
Also, need to verify my source right quick. I believe, and I could be wrong, hence why I'm verifying the source, that Ryan's actor is not contracted for next season.
Clara wasn't technically contracted for Series 9, so like who knows what could happen.
The whole would we do it in that position, the whole she puts it in their hands position, it reminded me. I take a philosophy class, and we just started learning about ethics, and so we did that whole moral thing where, you know, how if it's like one person on a train track and then 5 people on a train track, and you have the ability to
Right, the trolley problem, yes.
Yeah, the trolley problem. And then one of them was like the train is like made to stop if you put like a heavy enough weight in front of it. Like there's a fat dude. Would you seriously? Would you push the fat dude? But
hopefully it won't be hard to push.
5 others live, and like that scenario more than the just killing the 5, killing the 1. Scenario really had the class thinking, and I can't remember how I responded to it. And then it was like a sentiment of like, if you knew the person, because like I said, oh, I'd kill the 1 person, and then I was like, if it's Nick, I'd kill the 5 people, and like without hesitation. But
I appreciate it.
Ryan doesn't know Shelley, and I think the thing that the Doctor's bringing up is kind of a point that I talked to my teacher after class with, is like, either if Nick died in that scenario, or if I was responsible for that, or responsible for the 5 people, I'd probably just kill myself. Like, I wouldn't be able to deal with that. Like, I killed my own brother.
To be fair, if Nick was on the other side, I'm pretty sure the other 5 were going to die no matter what.
That's why I avoid train tracks.
Also, you guys should check out The Good Place.
Yeah, we've watched 3 episodes away from the finale.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like the 3rd season when they do that, the trolley thing, and
They literally just do it, and there's blood everywhere, and it's great.
If it weren't for the fact that was already the afterlife.
I feel like I had a completely separate point like 5 minutes ago, and now
I read something about Graham, other than I
Graham's
love dorky Graham.
Graham's a total dork in this episode, and it's really charming.
Yeah,
I liked the bit at the end where we just forget, wait, there were ghosts a minute ago, and then there's no explanation for it.
I'm not really a fan of that though, just because it feels like a kind of a cheap way to. You made a red herring, and like you didn't tie it into like some other stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, there's ghosts.
Yeah. So easily fix that by just saying like, oh, it was the filter thing. I forget.
Perception filter. That would be like more contrived than the alternative, which is just like it's a weird, unexplained thing in the universe full of weird, unexplained things.
Yeah, but then like the level of coincidence that all this happens at the same time is kind of weird.
Sorry, Nick, but I don't buy that. That just feels really lazy writing, and they had a way to fix
Well,
it.
I would say it was lazy if those ghosts did impact the plot at all, but they don't.
I saw a theory that someone said that Graham was experiencing hallucinations because of his cancer coming back.
No.
stuff, and I don't know. We'll have to see if it does. But
Yeah, I refuse to believe that that's a thing. That's not happening.
Feelings, or do you refuse it because the way it's written into the episode, you feel like they're going to do something else with it?
I feel like that's in really poor taste because that ended up being a gag.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's some crap I read on the internet. So,
But guys, what happened to the second hand?
was there a second hand?
The skeleton box, the hand comes, they like squash it. They're like 2 hands, and the other one went.
Oh no, they have it in a jar.
Common thing in the 19th century.
Is Percy Shelley responsible for the hand the whole time?
I think the implication is either that it's like part of the whole like house-wide perception filter thing, or like the energy of the Cybermen like traveling from one time period to another is like causing weird stuff, including animating the inanimate objects.
They probably should have clarified that more, I think.
The person on Twitter saying like it felt too, the slitting the throat thing felt too edgy. Like, did they not have that reaction to the doctor telepathically pushing a man forward to his own death?
Yeah, that was messed up.
I know.
I find that worse.
What's with the doctor and her weird ethics these days? I don't know.
That's also true. Like that's another wrinkle to the whole thing. It's like the doctor found a way out of that moral dilemma by ruining that guy's short life for
I mean,
the rest
he's
of
only
it.
got 3 years.
Well, they did try and soften the blow when they were talking, like, we've got so much time left together or something like that.
Well, no,
Yeah.
she's like,
Oh, no, I don't know
we
that
don't
one.
have a lot of time left, but that makes every moment more precious.
Yeah.
Which makes
That was it. Yeah, got the words.
But it's like it's still like, again, these are the kind of things that only the doctor can do. Gonna be on her conscience probably. So
Yeah, that was another good moment I liked in the episode.
I like
So-
the fact that even though the baby did die when it was a baby, they decided to not have it killed by a Cyberman.
although that neck snap was brutal.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the last video, or the last discussion rather, I liked the bit with Ryan at the piano. I thought he was really
Yeah, that was adorable.
I thought it was really neat this episode. Yes, RJH, you must just be coming in. We touched briefly upon the Master's return.
Well, apparently the Master's back.
And I love him.
I would expect him to come back.
To no one's
Because of the acronym, isn't it? Like they released a cast list for the next 2 episodes, and one of them is an actor who doesn't exist and whose name is an anagram for Master's back.
Oh, that thing.
Really?
Yes.
Well, at least my mom will be happy because she's like, I only like the Doctor, the Master, and like Ruth.
Nice.
Poor Sasha Dewan, because like he's known he was gonna be the Master since Capaldi was still the Doctor. Keep it a secret from everyone in his life.
He was cast that long ago?
Capaldi and Whitaker, and it like made him develop an anxiety disorder. And as somebody with an anxiety disorder, that poor man.
Enough for that because he had to wait an extra year because Chibnall didn't have his stuff together. 2 years, actually, I think.
Did you know that the Doctor, that Jodie Whittaker, almost died during that episode? By the way, during Spyfall.
I
Oh.
did not know that.
Really?
The Australia scenes were actually shot in South Africa, and like a giant South African poisonous spider got on her shoulder.
Oh my god.
She like flipped it off too, and like the tribal people around here were like, "No, don't do that."
I think it's just trying to get her into the mood for, playing the Doctor, constantly under attack by creatures.
You want to revenge what she did into the spider episode? You left my brothers to die in that safe.
Oh no. Oh no.
The spider was the god of knowledge. Just really wanted to know what was happening in the next episode.
A humane death for those.
You're like, they're still in there.
Brief note, Yaz talking to Madame Claremont
Yeah,
about Byron / the
that's
Doctor.
mean.
It's plenty gay.
It's
There's a
so
lot of gay
gay.
right there.
Could if you wanted to, but like I don't think it has to be like a romantic thing, personally.
No, but
I
like
don't think so
one-
either, but like
I'm being facetious mainly, but one of them is explicitly talking about someone they're romantically attracted to, and the other one is drawing a parallel to that person. So it's there if you want to read into it.
Yeah, I am a bit afraid though it might be gay baiting.
I think it's explicit enough to be queer baiting. Although by that argument, you could also argue that Sherlock isn't queer baiting, and it most certainly is.
Yes.
I mean, but at least the Doctor is already confirmed pansexual.
But I wouldn't be surprised or disappointed if nothing amounts from that. It stuck out
The
to
Doctor
me.
has a lot of other issues to deal with.
That's correct.
I just want, something to do. Literally, to have someone to.
I honestly think part of the reason the ship has become
Nice.
more popular is just because it would give Yaz something to do.
Yes, especially like I said, someone to do.
Yeah.
Although you don't want to go the route of giving a main character nothing to do but be a romantic interest, because then you have to have romantic drama.
Somebody also pointed out that it doesn't necessarily have to be in a romantic sense. It's just like Yaz is sympathizing because the doctor has been known to like give evasive answers to all their questions.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
But like, I think it's more just like Yaz. There's this sense of like letting somebody go.
I was gonna say though, that might be like the most potentially sort of sad reading of it, as maybe it's foreshadowing, where Claremont is talking about Byron, and that the episode ends with that relationship being like, I'm done. Like I've seen what you're really like, and I can't deal with that. What if that's foreshadowing for like if Yaz or Graham or Ryan gets the answers that they want and it leads to something bad, and like they cut off the relationship? It'd be interesting. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it'd be interesting.
We'll see. I think if anybody's probably going to go this season, it'll probably be Ryan.
He got cast in another show I saw last time.
Yeah, that's
Which one it
probably
was.
what I was.
Then again, with all the hiatuses, he'd probably have time for it. Who knows?
Yeah, that's
True. Like they're not filming next series for a while, so
yes. People might be jumping the gun there. They're like, "Oh, he's going to leave," and like, there's lots of gaps in between this series.
I'm very excited for the Master to come back. This entire stream is just going to turn into me fangirling over how much I love Sasha Dewan's Master.
I don't know. I'm ready for final thoughts. I think this is
Yeah,
a pretty strong episode. I'm excited for the Master to come back, but what I don't want to happen is that we make the Cybermen second fiddle again. Like, let's have a Cybermen finale where they're actually like the guy.
Because the Master and the Cybermen didn't really team up in that one, although they were a bit like to the side. While
They did for like 5 seconds before the Doctor was like, "Nope."
Nope. 2 hearts now.
The Dewan Master seems like the guy who's like, I'm not getting into that again.
I failed 2 times already. I mean, I forgot my whole redemption arc, but I remember the Cyberman was bad.
He just wants the Doctor's attention.
Honestly, though.
Yeah, jealous ex-boyfriend he is. I loved it. I like how gay it was. I like it. And I'm not just talking about Yaz and 13. It also made me more in love with Mary Shelley. I like the spookiness of it. I'm not a fan of like horror things in general, so I was skeptical. I like the vibes. There was a lot of cute moments. Graham, you had one job. That's an overlooked joke.
He still needs the bathroom, by the way, I'm pretty sure. He never went.
Oh no, they gave him a pot to pee in.
There we go.
Yeah.
Either that or the events of the episode would have made him relieve himself.
Oh.
She is the universe, and
I'm wondering if that poem is going to be in some way foreshadowing
I don't want to say the best, but this is pretty high up there in terms of Jodie Whittaker's performances altogether. There's a lot of raw vulnerability there. There's like angry crying doctor, which I like.
Yeah, I thought it was a very strong episode. Like, I think maybe it could be the best Jodie Whittaker episode so far, because the bar's not been set too high, in my opinion. But I really did think this was a great episode. Like, I thought the plot was quite cleverly done, especially with Percy's state being responsible for all the mysterious happenings that happened in the house. I liked the creepiness of it. I liked the portrayal of the historical figures. I thought there was a lot of good humor in it as well, especially with the butler character. I thought he was quite funny. And it was good, really good to see, I think, the 13th Doctor properly tested for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really brought out like a more interesting side to her Doctor and her dynamic with the companions. And it also built into the 2-part finale without, I think, sacrificing this story too much. I thought it was a very, very great episode. One of the best in the last couple of years, easily.
I guess the episode's okay, in my opinion. Like, it's not really bad, or I didn't really think it was particularly good either. Like, I think the first half was kind of boring me a little bit. It's more interesting when the Cyberman shows up. I like how it's directed, and like it's kind of cool seeing it like move around, and you can hear the noises. And it's kind of creepy. He's a pretty creepy dude, and I'm curious like how they're gonna follow up on that with the next episode or two. I feel like maybe if there was more of a thorough line with the first half, as far as like more character stuff with the main people, it would have been a little bit stronger. Like Nick mentioned, Face the Raven, and I think one of the things that works there is that like even in the first half, before we find out all the stuff that's going to happen, like there is this thorough line of like Clara and the Doctor and the recklessness and stuff. So like that was there throughout the whole episode. And I feel like maybe we could have used a bit more of that. That might have helped like bridge things together a bit more. But like, you know, like I'm curious what they're gonna do, and the stuff is happening, I guess.
Stuff is happening.
For once.
For once. I'll just give my brief opinion. I just thought it was very meh, and I'm just a bit shocked to like people's reactions to it, like online. People are saying this is probably like the greatest episode that's ever graced the series, both new and old.
I've never heard anyone say that.
It's a crowning achievement. I'm like,
it could have been part of the marketing team.
I don't know. I was thinking about making like a comedy video for the channel or something and then I went online and people were saying this is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to the show, and I'm like, what? I
would love to see like a parody video, just like praising like an episode and be like, "This is the greatest artistic achievement of all time," and then just as like a troll move, do that with Orphan 55. Do it.
We all know it's the greatest one.
55, you magnificent bastard.
Well, I don't think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to the series. I think it's in my top 5 Doctor 13. Only if you count Spyfall as one episode, like both parts of Spyfall as one episode.
Which I do.
Which I would say It Takes You Away.
It's number 1.
Spyfall. This is in no particular order.
Demons of Punjab.
Demons of the Punjab would probably be in the top 5 of this era.
Nikola Tesla's episode.
And this.
Though Rosa's real close. Rosa makes me physically uncomfortable.
I think we should probably wrap it up.
All right.
Yeah, so I have a channel, I guess, so
We'll link it in the description.
It has nothing to do with this, but if you want to see me do 12's speech from Zygon Invasion in front of a bunch of people, I mean, I did it pretty well. You'll have my channel if you like speeches.
Put all the links in the things.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to these 2 behemoth videos. If no one else has anything to add.
Anyway, see y'all later, I guess.
Bye.
Bye.